Hey everyone! Today I want to talk about Elephant from 2003 by Gus Van Sant. This is the 49th episode in my 1,000 favorite movie series, where I talk about the movies I love the most in a random order. This is probably the most difficult movie I've made a video about so far. With every other movie, I've been able to figure out how to approach and review them relatively easily, but this one is stumping me. Should it be through the lens of gun violence in schools, or through the slightly broader topic of violence that's seemingly random, cold, and unpredictable? Or maybe it's best to view it as what it technically is, a high school movie. Or should I approach it more like a formal art house experiment? All of these approaches are equally valid, I think, but what really makes it difficult is that these three major elements, senseless gun violence, the high school movie genre, and formal experimentation, don't always mesh together, and sometimes even contradict each other, so getting a clear picture on what the movie even is a challenge. Perhaps this is a flaw, but whatever it is, this troubling movie has sucked me back into it many times over the years, and hopefully I can convey why it has. I'd like to talk about all three pieces of the puzzle, starting with the topic of gun violence. The movie is based on the Columbine shooting, and although it doesn't purport to be anywhere near an adaptation of it, it's about what starts off as an ordinary day at school, but then two boys come with guns and cause mayhem, murdering many innocent people along the way. In other words, the movie's about a school shooting and the events leading up to it. Of course, the most natural question is why it happened, but the movie wisely doesn't attribute it to a single cause. I've read some people imply that the movie doesn't take a stance as to the reason, although I don't think that's true either. But it's interesting, because since the events in the movie take place within a super short period of time, and since the movie follows many different characters within a short running time, we don't get too much character development of the killers, nor do we get into their psychology. We instead get a brief snapshot into their lives, and from it we can glean a number of factors that all add up. They're Alex and Eric, and it's safe to assume that they're each other's only friends. For me, the biggest contributing factor is probably shown in our introduction to the main one, Alex, as he gets pelted by large white stuff. By the way, how the hell does a teacher not notice anything? We also later see them watching a documentary about the Nazis and admiring what they're seeing, easily ordering a gun online and having it delivered with no difficulty. Alex playing piano but getting angry at his poor playing. The two of them kissing in the shower after confessing that neither of them had been kissed before. And Eric playing a shitty-looking game where he can just shoot random people. Now, I had a bad initial reaction to seeing this last part, because it looked like Gus Van Sant was buying into the nonsense, in my opinion, that video games cause real-life violence, when it's my belief that violent video games can only possibly affect people already prone to violence. But maybe Van Sant agrees with me. It's hard to know for sure, because the movie never really makes a statement about any one thing being a cause. By showing so many different things that might be red flags or indicators, I think Van Sant is showing that it's a certain mindset. Or not. The movie's only a very brief window into their lives after all, so we can't know for sure. See why this movie's so difficult? But let's not forget that most of the time involving the killers is outside of school, when the movie is first and foremost a high school movie. But of course it's nowhere near a typical one. Like I said, we follow several different characters. I'm pretty sure all of whom were played by non-professional actors, with most of them using their real names as their characters' names. None of them do anything particularly special or out of the ordinary. We just see them going about their day. They include, for example, John, who is late for school again due to his alcoholic father, Elias, who's a photographer taking pictures and developing them for his portfolio, and Michelle, a girl who's a bit of an outcast and insecure about wearing shorts in gym class, to name perhaps the most interesting examples. While the movie doesn't have the story of a typical high school movie, it does hit some of the recognizable notes, which are parsed out by the dialogue that hints at the school dynamic beyond the single day the movie portrays. When Nathan passes Brittany, Jordan, and Nicole in the hallway, Brittany gives him a flirtatious look, but the other girls tell her that he has a girlfriend already, which she didn't know. They start to gossip about his girlfriend and an incident that happened earlier. When Nicole says a few minutes later that she can't hang out with him after school, Brittany starts to grill her about why she hasn't been hanging out with him enough recently. When John gets called to the principal's office, we can tell he's been there before for almost certainly the same reason, being late because of his alcoholic father. Shortly after, there's a mysterious moment where he goes into an empty room. A girl named Acadia comes in and kisses him on the cheek. I can't shake the feeling that they seem like strangers, but they can't be, right? The level of bullying of Alex in science class indicates to me that this has been going on for a long time. And most disturbingly, in the middle of the shooting, Eric threatens the principal by saying, "You know there's others like us out there too, and they will kill you if you fuck with them like you did me and Jerry." Who's Jerry? I have no idea, but whatever it is, it's an issue that happened well before the movie began. Even though we're plopped into a random day at school with no exposition, we still get the feeling of the complicated dynamics of high school, and because of that, I'd argue that this should be viewed upon as a high school movie. I read a provocative article in Artforum about this movie, which I haven't been able to forget, which mentioned how this is really a beautiful movie where high school is, quote, transformed into a kind of holy site, suffused with beauty that belongs only to youth. There are many ways that can be interpreted, but to me it refers to little moments throughout that show the camaraderie of high school students. I'm thinking of when Elias comes across a goth couple and they agree to have their photos taken for his project, or later in the darkroom when he talks with the girl about each of their projects, or when Benny, another student who we don't see very much of, helps Acadia out the window to escape the shooting, or in the gay-straight alliance meeting when everyone's engaged with each other talking about issues, or when Elias bumps into his friend in the hallway and they hug. These little sparks of ordinary beauty make it more tragic, not only that something like a shooting might happen, but also that cracks appear and things can slip through. Like Michelle, who's not bullied, but just lonely, or whatever happened to Alex and Eric, which led to a horrific event that no one saw coming. Which leads me to the formal element of the film, which is ultimately perhaps the most striking thing about it. The movie was primarily inspired by a TV movie from 1989, also called Elephant, directed by Alan Clark. In short, it's probably one of the most brutal and depressing movies ever made. For nearly 40 minutes, we follow random people through random parts of Northern Ireland, and at the end of their paths, they shoot and kill someone. It's really just a series of senseless gun murders without context. Aside from the obvious thematic link, maybe its biggest influence is the way it's shot, which is partly with tracking shots from behind the killers down hallways, alleyways, and so on. The Van Sant movie does this as well, as we get long tracking shots of students walking through the school corridors. Shots like this also resemble ones found in the earlier film. These are done extremely effectively due to a number of reasons. First, there's a realistic lighting, which really transports you into the world of the film. This shot is especially memorable. The camera starts outside, so the inside looks really dark, but as the camera moves inside, the environment slowly starts to become illuminated, like our eyes getting used to the light. There's also the sound design, which makes for a very tense atmosphere. There's a real sense of dread and strange foreboding, achieved through sound effects and subtle music. Coincidentally, going back to this shot again, as Elias continues down the hall, it sounds like there's jazz music playing. I assume it's coming from a school band, but is it? As he's walking down the hallway? Layered on top of this are sci-fi-like sound effects, which definitely aren't diegetic. A more obvious but effective use of music is when the Moonlight Sonata is played as we're following Nathan for about 4 minutes straight from outside to meet his girlfriend, but we still get some atmospheric diegetic sounds along the way. It doesn't stay in this mode for the whole movie, but definitely for a great amount of it. What this allows for is for us to be more or less fixed into these characters' perspectives, and so it can be difficult to notice other things, which helps with the other major formal experiment of the film, which is the intersecting characters and plot lines. Similar to another movie that probably inspired this with many shots of people walking, Shatan Tango, Elephant features the same events of the same day from different perspectives. One clear example is this scene, where John meets Elias in the hallway. He takes a picture of him. A girl runs past him without either of them noticing, and they go on their separate ways. First we see this from John's perspective, then Elias's, then the girl who ran past, who inattentive viewers might not have realized was Michelle. Aside from the fact that this occurs right before the shooting starts, this particular scene I guess doesn't have any significance, besides showing what the other examples of this also show, that it's easy to miss things you don't pay attention to, and that the people who we pass by every day also have their own lives and stories we know nothing about. Everyone of course knows this, but how many of us really internalize it? The fact that our perspective is only our own, and the other 8 billion people on Earth have different ones, shaped by everything in their lives. Is this looking too deeply into a scene of people passing by each other in the hallway? I don't think so. By going to the same events and locations multiple times from different perspectives, we can use these small examples to make this powerful realization. And if we all paid a little more attention to each other and tried to expand our perspectives to those around us, maybe, just maybe, could we actually see horrible events coming. This girl came close. She asked Alex what he was doing. He said that he's planning, and that she'll see what it is. She walks away, and that's the end of that. If the conversation would have kept going, who knows what could have happened, and what could have been stopped. I've tried to show how this is a more complex and meaningful film than what it might appear to be on the surface, but do these 3 main elements, gun violence, the high school genre, and the form, come together seamlessly to make a perfect movie? Frankly, they probably don't, and there's one major contradiction that's the reason why. After establishing the formal structure of intersecting characters on the single day at school, we get the sections involving Alex and Eric, most of which aren't at school, with no characters intersecting in real time, and it's not on a single day. The first time we see Alex being bullied is actually a flashback, we later realize, and a huge chunk of the second half features the two killers at home hanging out and planning. For me, the stuff at school is so engrossing that I wish they were somehow able to keep the same structure throughout, as opposed to basically throwing it away for a period of time. There's another flaw that I can't shake. It's to do with Brittany, Jordan, and Nicole, three quote popular girls, you could say. Van Sant has shown sensitivity to all the students thus far in the film, but I feel like he betrays that here. After barely touching their lunch for a couple of minutes, they finish their meal, go to the bathroom, and throw up their food. Of course, bulimia is a real thing that some people deal with, but my issue is how I get the feeling that it's played for laughs here. The fact that this also comes at the end of what's arguably the best shot of the movie is kind of a bummer. But to be honest, you know my actual biggest problem with the movie is? I don't think it's long enough. I really truly wish this movie were longer, even something like a 3-hour epic, to really get more detailed about the intricacies of the life at this school. This is an extremely rare problem for me, but it just goes to show how much I enjoy this movie. Now for my favorite moments. Speaking of that shot, let me show you just how intricate it is. It starts with an event we've already seen from earlier, with the lifeguard passing the three girls, but it's interesting because that was in slow motion, but this time it's in normal speed, so it feels different. Anyway, they walk to the cafeteria together, and when we get there, we go behind the lunch counter, then unexpectedly through the back rooms where the food people work, and even catch a glimpse of a couple of them smoking. We finally meet them at their table, but we soon see another event that we see multiple times in the film, John walking outside and doing his dog trick. This is timed so perfectly, with the girls even commenting on it as it's happening. Then we focus on their conversation, then they get up and leave to go to the bathroom, but along the way the camera glides past another table where we get another conversation. This 6-minute shot has got to be the most complex shot of the movie. Another of my favorite shots is one of the few stationary shots. I mentioned it earlier, but I want to emphasize it again, because it's not only one of the most haunting looking shots in the film, but it fits a mood that I love a lot, which is that of the empty institutional space. I love these kind of institutional buildings like schools and so on, especially the feeling I get when they're empty. I loved it in real life when I was in school, and I love it in movies as well. There's also the most disturbing moment of the film for me. It obviously comes during the shooting, but it might not be what you expect. I won't spoil what happens, because it might be the only plot twist in the movie. It comes as a complete shock, but the real reason why it's disturbing is that it shows that Alex has deeper problems than I thought. This one can't be explained away by any superficial reason. It takes our previously held notion about him and makes us start over. We didn't know he was that messed up. But in the end, what I love about Elephant is that while it's a movie with flaws, it's an experience that keeps drawing me back to its expert formalism and its lifelike yet cold atmosphere. I think what made me love this movie in the first place was its presentation of high school that feels intuitive, yet is something I've never seen anything like before, and what's kept it rich for me is the complex nature of what Gus Van Sant was trying to express in a seemingly simple film. It may not be for everyone, but it is for me, and so it's one of my 1,000 favorite movies. Thanks for watching my video. Goshou makoto ni arigatou gozaimasu. Have you seen Elephant? Let me know what you think in the comments. I think of all my favorite movies as my friends, and I think of my audience as friends too. Remember, I upload a new video every Friday, so if you want to help me complete this 1,000 favorite movies epic, don't forget to like and subscribe.